The whispers started long before the cameras stopped flashing. Inside the marble corridors of the Venice Film Festival, where elegance hides behind nervous smiles, something happened that nobody could ignore. At first, it was just talk, a quiet rumor spreading between stylists, makeup artists, and assistants working behind the scenes. "Did you see what happened between Can and Sara?" someone whispered near the dressing room. It was too much. Too much. Those two words were enough to set everything in motion. Yaman had arrived in Venice as one of the most anticipated names on the guest list, the Turkish actor who'd become Italy's favorite mystery. Dressed in a tailored black suit, charming as ever, he was the definition of control. But the night didn't end the way it began. When he walked into the after party, all eyes turned toward him and the woman at his side, Sara. The chemistry between them wasn't subtle. It was fire disguised as a conversation, laughter that lingered too long. A look that said more than words could. A production assistant later told an Italian magazine, they didn't care who was watching. It was like they were in their own world. At first, people thought it was harmless, just two colleagues enjoying the night. But when Sara placed her hand on his chest during a quiet exchange, and he leaned in closer, the photographers who caught the moment knew exactly what they had. By morning, the picture was everywhere. Headlines screamed, "Can Yaman and Sara too close in Venice?" But what the public didn't see was what happened after the camera stopped. According to one insider from the organizing team, the tension between them spilled off the red carpet. They were seen arguing near the exit. The source claimed it wasn't loud, but it was serious. You could feel the energy shift instantly. Nobody knew what they were arguing about. Some said it was jealousy, others said it was emotion, but one thing was certain, whatever happened that night didn't end when the party did. The next morning, Can was seen leaving his hotel early, alone, wearing sunglasses and a grey hoodie. No smiles. No entourage. Reporters tried to stop him, asking if he'd spent the night with Sara. He didn't answer, he just said, "Not everything you see is what it seems." Yet even that statement made things worse. Because if there's one thing fans and tabloids agree on, it's this: silence is never the end of a story, it's just the beginning of a bigger one. By the next morning, the whispers had turned into a roar. What started as a private rumor within the festival team had now become the headline across Italy, Turkey, and Spain. Every tabloid had the same photo, Yaman and Sara, inches apart, under the soft golden lights of the after party, their smiles frozen in time. The caption was always the same: too close for comfort? Within hours, it was everywhere, from gossip magazines in Milan to primetime talk shows in Istanbul. Italian hosts replayed the footage of them walking together, dissecting every glance, every touch. Turkish media brought in relationship experts to analyze Can's body language. "Look at his eyes," one host said, zooming in dramatically. "That's not friendship. That's something else." But the drama didn't end there. Because while the world was talking about that look, that hand, that laugh, Sara was watching it all unfold in real time. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from her agent, her publicist, her friends, everyone wanted the same thing: a statement. At first, she ignored them all. She didn't want to feed the fire. But when one headline crossed the line, "Can Yaman's new love?" Sara breaks his silence with her eyes. She knew she couldn't stay quiet forever. That afternoon, she posted a single Instagram story, a black background with just 3 words written in white letters: "Respect the truth." No names. No explanations, but that was enough to set social media ablaze. Fans immediately divided into two camps: those who believed Sara was defending Can, and those who thought she was distancing herself. The hashtag Can and Sara hit 1 million posts in a single night. Meanwhile, Can himself stayed completely silent. No posts. No interviews. No comments. For a man who lived in front of cameras, his silence spoke louder than any press release ever could. One of the festival staff members later told La Repubblica. He looked different the next day, quieter, like he was carrying something heavy. Back in his hotel, Can watched the chaos unfold from his phone. Every scroll showed a new story: secret romance, Sara in tears, Demet reacts to the scandal. He turned it off. He didn't need to see more. He already knew what was coming. His team called, suggesting damage control, an official statement, maybe even a denial, but he refused. "If you explain," he said, "they'll just twist your words." Sara, on the other hand, wasn't as calm. She'd been followed by paparazzi all day, outside her apartment, her car, even the cafe she visited with friends, she looked tired, cornered, and strangely emotional. One photographer claimed she whispered, "It wasn't what they think," before stepping into her car. Still, the more she tried to hide, the louder the rumors grew. Fans started posting side-by-side photos of Can and Sara, of Can and Demet, comparing expressions, speculating, romanticizing. It became a game no one could win, and by evening, one Italian outlet published an explosive new claim. A crew member confirms that the chemistry between Can and Sara wasn't just acting, it was real. No one knew if it was true, but it didn't matter. The world believed what it wanted to believe. That night, Can sat on his balcony overlooking Rome, his phone buzzing relentlessly beside him. He ignored every call, every text. Then, finally, he opened Instagram and typed a caption, but deleted it before posting. It said, "The louder the world speaks, the quieter the truth becomes." And with that, the man at the center of the storm poured himself a drink, leaned back, and stared into the night, knowing that this silence was only the calm before the next wave. The storm didn't calm. It only grew louder. By the third day, the story had left Venice and spread across Europe like wildfire. Entertainment Weekly Italia called it the most unexpected scandal of the festival, while Spanish tabloids described it as La Conexión Prohibida. No one cared about the premieres or the awards anymore. The spotlight had turned completely toward Yaman and Sara, two names now linked by one whispered accusation: he went too far. What did that mean? No one could agree. But the phrase itself was enough to sell headlines, and that was all the media needed. Behind the glamour, though, the truth was far less dramatic, and far more human. Sara hadn't slept in 2 nights. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, the laughter, the lights, the way he'd looked at her across the table. There had been something electric between them, yes, but it wasn't what people thought. It wasn't love. It wasn't lust. It was something deeper and more dangerous: understanding. He had confided in her that night, quietly, away from the noise. Sometimes, he'd said, "I feel like people love the version of me they invented, not who I really am." Sara had nodded. "That's fame," she whispered. "It builds a mirror, and then locks you inside it." But then came that single moment, the touch that cameras caught, the look that tabloids replayed endlessly. 1 second of warmth that turned into weeks of chaos. Now, as she scrolled through articles filled with her name, Sara felt like a stranger in her own life. Her team begged her to issue a clear denial, but she refused. "The more you fight it," she said softly, "the more real it becomes." Meanwhile, Can was fighting his own battle. Producers were calling, brands were worried. The kind of scandal that might seem romantic to fans was a nightmare in the industry. But Can didn't flinch. He had been through worse. Public heartbreak, betrayal, the endless comparisons to Demet. But this felt different, because this time, the pain wasn't about love lost. It was about reputation, and deep down, he hated that Sara was being dragged into something she didn't deserve. In an attempt to protect her, he finally broke his silence, but in the most Yaman way possible. Not with an interview, not with a tweet, but with a story. He posted a black and white photo of the Venice pier, empty and quiet, with the caption, "Sometimes, when you stand too close to the truth, people mistake it for scandal." No names. No details, just a line, enough to make the internet explode all over again. Within an hour, every outlet reprinted it as proof. Yaman admits crossing the line. Sara and Can's emotional confession. But those who knew him understood better. He wasn't confessing. He was defending. That same night, Demet's name appeared in headlines again. "How does she feel about Can's new controversy?" Reporters asked, desperate to tie her into the story. She didn't answer. Of course, she never did. But one fan noticed something subtle. Demet had liked a fan edit, an old photo of her and Can, overlaid with the quote, "You can't lose what was never really gone." It was small, almost invisible, but to the internet, it was everything. And now, the narrative changed again. Suddenly, fans began to speculate that Sara wasn't the problem, she was the reflection. That Can, deep down, still hadn't healed from Demet, and that the spark with Sara had only reignited something buried. It was too much, too fast, too cruel. Sara turned off her phone, packed her bags, and left Rome without telling anyone. One journalist who saw her at the airport said she looked exhausted, beautiful, and heartbroken. Another source claimed she muttered under her breath, "He didn't mean to, it just happened." Meanwhile, Ken stayed in his apartment, scrolling through the chaos, whispering to himself, "It always just happens." And in that whisper was everything: regret, fatigue, and the unspoken truth that sometimes, the stories that destroy you aren't the lies people tell, but the truths they never will. Sara disappeared from the headlines as quickly as she had appeared. One day, she was everywhere, her photos, her laughter, her name in every breaking news alert, and the next, she was gone. No posts. No appearances. No trace. Some said she had gone back to Spain, others claimed she was in Istanbul, hiding at a friend's house. The truth, no one knew, and that mystery only made the story grow bigger for Ken. The silence that followed her disappearance was heavier than the scandal itself. The constant flashing lights outside his building were gone now, but so was the noise, and sometimes, the quiet can hurt even more. He spent his days at home, rejecting calls from producers and brand representatives who wanted statements, interviews, or explanations. The only thing he said to his manager was, "The more you talk, the more you lose control of the truth." But the truth, in this case, was that he was exhausted, emotionally and spiritually. Venice had left a mark, and not just because of Sara. It had forced him to look in the mirror again, to confront the question that haunted him for years. Was he really living, or just performing the version of himself the world wanted to see? He tried to distract himself with work, training, and long midnight drives through Rome's empty streets. Yet, every time he stopped at a red light, memories came rushing back, not just of Sara, but of Demet, her face, her laugh, her silence, the way she used to look at him like she could see through every wall he built. He hadn't spoken to her in years, but the mention of her name in the headlines had reopened something old, something unresolved. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Demet was filming a new drama, the kind that demanded tears, conflict, and passion. But between takes, she wasn't acting, she was remembering. Her phone buzzed with messages from journalists asking if she had seen the Venice scandal. She ignored them all, but that night, as she scrolled through her feed, she came across Ken's post again. The black and white photo of the empty pier. She stared at it for a long time, then she smiled faintly and whispered, "You never did like calm seas, did you?" A few days later, the Turkish press broke a new headline: Demet Özdemir breaks her silence about Ken. But it was misleading. She hadn't said a word about him, she had only posted a line from a Turkish poem: "Some storms don't destroy, they reveal who's strong enough to stay standing." That single sentence sent the internet into chaos again. Fans believed it was a direct message to Ken. Italian outlets translated it and linked it to the Venice scandal. Suddenly, the triangle was back. Ken, Sara, Demet, and Ken, once again, said nothing, but that silence spoke volumes, because those who really knew him understood. When Ken Yaman stayed silent, it wasn't because he didn't care. It was because he cared too much. One night, unable to sleep, he drove to the coast, parking near a deserted beach outside Rome. The waves were calm, and the sky was full of stars. He walked barefoot across the sand, the cold wind brushing his face. For the first time in weeks, he felt free. He took out his phone, opened his notes app, and typed, "It's strange how one misunderstanding can make people forget who you are. But maybe it's better that way. Maybe silence is the only way to protect what's still real." He didn't post it, he just saved it, a private thought for a public man. Back in Istanbul, Sara finally reappeared. Quietly, without interviews or fanfare, she posted a single photo on her Instagram, a sunset over the water, captioned simply, "Every ending brings peace, if you let it." People assumed it was about Ken. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but Ken saw it. He didn't like it, didn't comment, didn't react, yet he stayed on the page for a long time, as if memorizing it. The scandal was dying, but something deeper had taken its place. A lingering sadness, a feeling that not everything broken can be fixed, not everything loud needs an answer. And in that silence between three cities, Rome, Istanbul, Madrid, one truth remained unspoken but undeniable: the whispers might fade, but what they awaken, never really does. Weeks later, the noise had finally faded, but silence, as Ken would learn, carries its own kind of echo. The festival scandal that once filled every headline had become just another tabloid memory, replaced by newer stories, new faces, new controversies. Yet, in the quiet corners of Rome, its shadow still lingered. Ken had gone back to work, his schedule packed with filming, training, and brand meetings. But when the cameras turned off, he was different. His laughter came slower, his eyes softer. People around him said he seemed lighter, But it wasn't peace they saw, it was acceptance. Some stories, he realized, don't end with explanations, they end with understanding. One evening, after a long day on set, he sat alone in his dressing room. On the table beside him lay a stack of unopened letters from fans, a few scripts, and a small photograph. Venice, the night that had changed everything, the lights, the noise, the whispers. He turned the photo face down, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "I hope you're breathing easier now." He didn't need to ask who it was. The tone, the timing, the silence after, it could only be Sara. He smiled faintly and typed back, "Finally." No other words. No need, that was their closure, quiet, clean, honest. Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Sara was slowly reclaiming her peace. The media had moved on, and for the first time in months, she could walk freely again without flashes in her face. On a warm evening, she met a small group of friends at a seaside cafe. Someone mentioned Can, and she just smiled. "He's stronger than people think," she said softly, "but he's also gentler than he lets them see." They changed the subject, but inside, Sara knew that Venice had left her with something she hadn't expected, not scandal, not heartbreak, but perspective. Some connections, she realized, are meant not to last but to teach. That night, she posted one final message on her story before disappearing from social media for good. "There's no villain in this story. Just two people who met in the wrong light." It was the sentence that ended it all. The internet sighed, the rumors stopped, and for the first time since Venice, everything felt still. But the story wasn't quite over. Across the sea, in Istanbul, Demet was wrapping up filming when her assistant handed her a small envelope. It was from Italy, no name, no sender. Inside, there was just a single piece of paper with a handwritten quote, "Silence isn't distance. It's protection." She read it twice, her lips parting just slightly. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in her notebook, and whispered, "I know." That night, she sat on her balcony overlooking the Bosphorus, the lights of the city flickering below. She opened her journal, the same one she had written in during the darkest chapters of her past, and added one final line, "Maybe love doesn't return to where it began. It just circles quietly above, waiting to be remembered kindly." In Rome, Ken walked along the riverbank near his home. The air smelled of rain, and the city hummed softly around him. He stopped at the same bridge he always visited, the one where he could see the water and feel far away from everything. He took out his phone and opened a blank note. For a moment, he stared at it, his fingers hovering over the screen. Then he began to type. "If I went too far, it wasn't with words or actions. It was with feelings I thought I'd forgotten how to feel." He paused, smiled faintly, and deleted it. Some truths were meant to stay unspoken. He slipped his phone into his pocket and looked up at the sky. The moon hung low and golden, its reflection trembling across the river. Somewhere out there, maybe under that same moon, he knew Sara was finally free of the noise, and Demet was smiling at peace. And him, he was still learning how to live quietly. Before leaving, he whispered into the night, "No regrets. Only lessons." He walked away, the sound of his footsteps blending with the water below. Days later, a new photo appeared on his Instagram, a breathtaking shot of the night sky over Rome. No caption, no hashtags, no explanation, but fans noticed a small, hidden detail. In the corner of the image, faintly visible, was a single handwritten phrase on the edge of a notebook. It read, "Some whispers never fade. They just find peace." And that, finally, was the end. A story born from rumor, shaped by silence, and closed by understanding. The world would remember the festival as a scandal, a mystery, a spark. But for Yaman, and for the women who had once shared that spotlight with him, it became something else entirely, a quiet reminder that even when the world speaks too loudly, the heart always whispers the truth.